was back doing dishes no one else touched. That's when it clicked. I wasn't their sibling. I was their employee. Unpaid. My name's Bennett. I was 26, still in Pittsburgh, working back-to-back shifts, daytime at a grocery deli in Greenfield, overnight stocking at a dollar store off Carson. My tips and change got scooped into a kitchen jar labeled household pot, like I was some walking ATM with apron grease. Before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're watching from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks. And now the story. My parents, Renee and Todd, loved saying I was their built-in parent. They'd smile like it was some compliment. "We don't know what we'd do without you, Ben," Mom would say, especially when I was hauling Ava to cheer practice in Bloomfield or Luke to JV basketball in Squirrel Hill. Then I'd come home to crusted pans, a mile-high laundry pile, and a list of things that somehow only I noticed were broken. "You know it's just easier if you do it," Mom told me once when I asked why no one else folded towels. "You do it right." She also forgot to switch the bills out of my name. Phone plan? Mine. Netflix? Mine. Electric? Yup, mine too. All for the discount, she claimed. But when the notices came late, it was my credit that took the punch. I once found a red envelope buried under pizza coupons. I asked her about it. "Oh, that?" she said. "Yeah, I meant to pay it. You've got better credit anyway." Ours is shot. Todd ran a landscaping business. Small but honest, he'd say. Except when he'd toss me the keys to his truck at 9 p.m. and say, "Go pick up that blower from the shop. Forgot it again." Then he'd ask if I chipped in gas lately. If I said no, he'd grunt, "Figures." One time I said I wanted to sign up for boxing classes in Homestead. Cheap, nothing fancy. And Todd barked, "We need that money for bills." Gym is a luxury. Mom jumped in too. Family comes first. Right. Family. Their kind of family meant the fridge was filled for the twins first. Ava had oat milk and brand granola. Luke got name-brand protein powder. Me? I had off-brand Mac and bruised bananas from the discount bin. No one wrote down my schedule. That lived in my head, crumpled in a pocket with deli slips and IOUS for gas. The kitchen calendar was sacred, bright ink for every single one of Ava and Luke's events. But my shifts, my double weekends, not worth a marker apparently. And the stories. Don't get me started. There was no baby book for me. No framed pictures before the twins showed up. Once I asked about my birth story, and Mom smiled weird and said, "You were a miracle." Then the twins came along, like I was some warm-up act before the real kids arrived. One day I needed my Social Security card for paperwork. The issue date was when I was around 5. Weird. My childhood shots? Not from anywhere in Allegheny County. They were listed from a clinic in Wheeling, West Virginia. That made no sense. There was this old plastic folder on the laundry shelf labeled insurance/taxes. One time I brushed it aside while reaching for dryer sheets and saw part of a page sticking out. One word on the top, decree, in bold. I didn't touch it, but it stayed in my head. Then Mrs. Whalen, the neighbor across the street, caught me one morning. "You were so quiet when you first came to live with them," she said, then clamped her lips like she swallowed her tongue. And the cherry on top? Every time I cooked something decent, like actually good, Mom would wag a finger and say, "Don't get fancy. Save that for people who pay your wage." Then she'd snap, "Played it right though, like a restaurant." So yeah, that was my life. Built-in parent, built-in driver, built-in maid, but not once, not ever, did I feel like their kid. I started showing up at the Hill District Community Kitchen on Tuesday and Thursday nights, right after my deli shift. No one there cared how tired I looked or what car I pulled up in. They handed me an apron, pointed to a sink, and that was that. I chopped onions till my eyes burned, stirred massive pots of chili, and helped serve trays to folks who said thank you, like it meant something. It felt like breathing room. No calendar packed with someone else's plans. No fake family first line. Just sweat, heat, and food. And it was mine. Mr. Delgado ran the place like a tight ship, but not in a loud way. He didn't bark. He watched. On my third night, I adjusted the vinegar in a chili pot because it was too flat. Just a splash. Balanced it out. Delgado clocked it, said nothing for a minute, then leaned over and said, "You've got a real palate, kid. I'll cover your classes if you show up and grind." I didn't say anything back, just nodded, because if I'd opened my mouth, I might have choked. Next night, he handed me a used ServSafe book with pages bent and notes in the margins. Told me he'd walk me through it, and basic knife skills too, but I had to do the work. Then he looked me straight in the face and said, "Stop wasting time arguing with people who like your labor, but not your future." It landed hard. I'd been too deep in my grind to see it, but yeah, he saw right through it all. I told my parents over dinner, already knowing how it'd go. Still, I tried. Delgado wants to sponsor me for kitchen training. I'd be taking classes 2 nights a week. I'll still cover rides for the twins, just need a little flex. Mom didn't even look up from her phone. Who's gonna handle their rides when you're at class? The house doesn't run itself. Dad didn't wait 2 seconds before chiming in. Don't get big ideas, Ben. Just be reliable at the deli. That's what matters. That's where the money comes from. They didn't ask who Delgado was. Didn't ask what I wanted to learn. Just shut it down like I was talking nonsense. The next morning, my deli manager pulled me aside before I clocked in. Said someone had called, anonymous of course, claiming I'd been sneaking meat home at night. Cold cuts and rotisserie. Total lie. I laughed it off, but it stuck. He said he had to log it, just in case. That same evening, Delgado dropped by the deli. No warning. Just came by for coffee. And while I bagged his order, he leaned in low and said, "If anyone asks, I'll vouch for you. You're straight. Don't let them scare you off." His tone didn't change, but it was the first time in a long while someone had my back, without being asked. A week later, I went down to the community college to ask about enrolling. Not even to register, just to figure out how to start. That's where I met Harper Diaz. She worked the registrar window evenings. Said she was a paralegal finishing her own certs. Had this calm voice and didn't talk down to me once. When I told her I was trying to sign up and needed info for Real ID, she asked for my birth certificate details. I said I didn't have the original, only a copy. She frowned, just slightly. "If it's lost, you'll need to request a certified copy. Start early. You'll thank me later." Some counties dragged their feet. She tapped a few things into the computer, paused, and then asked, "Are the utilities and phone plan actually yours, or just in your name?" "Both," I said, but my stomach turned a little. She looked up. "If other people use the accounts and the payments fall behind, that's on you. Just be careful, okay?" She didn't say it like a warning, more like someone who'd been there and saw it coming. That night, I checked the junk drawer looking for my ServSafe test date. Delgado said it'd be mailed soon. Mixed in with expired coupons and an old charger cable, I found the letter, unopened. Test date was 4 days ago. I held it up to Mom in the kitchen and said, "You get the mail every day. Why didn't you give me this?" She glanced at it, shrugged. "Must have slipped. Don't blame me if you're not organized." Didn't blink. Just went back to stirring her tea. I rebooked the test myself. Delgado said he'd cover the cost again, but only this once. "Show up next time or don't bother," he said, eyes steady. At church that weekend, Noah, this quiet guy who usually sat 2 pews ahead, caught me in the parking lot. Said he'd heard I was trying to get into culinary. I must have looked exhausted, 'cause he didn't even ask, just said, "Crash on my couch if you need a breather, till you find a place. We'll figure it out." I almost said no out of habit, but I didn't. I just nodded and said, "Yeah, that might help." It was after 1 in the morning. I was hauling the trash to the curb while a sink full of cold pans sat untouched. The twins' uniforms were still thudding in the dryer, and someone had left an empty milk jug on the counter, like they expected it to refill itself. I stood there, hands wet, shoulders locked up from work and driving and hauling bags all day. Something in me just snapped. I said it out loud. Quiet, but sharp. Right there in that kitchen, under the buzz of the fridge light. I'm not your built-in babysitter. I'm done bankrolling this house. The next morning, I packed 2 duffels. One had my work shirts, socks, and my best pair of boots. The other held my old chef's knife wrapped in a towel, a binder with my pay stubs, and the battered ServSafe manual Delgado gave me. I waited until the house was empty. Mom at her hair appointment, Dad on a landscaping job, the twins still at school. Noon. I shut the door behind me without a note, without a word. Noah had cleared out a corner in his basement. Beach view, near the T-line. Cement floor, 1 space heater, twin mattress on a frame that creaked a little when I dropped my bags. No window, but the air felt clean. Breathing room. Pay me when you can, he said, holding out a spare key. I thanked him and meant it. That night, I sat cross-legged on that mattress and exhaled so hard I had to sit still a few minutes before I could even start thinking again. First move the next morning. I went to a credit union and opened an account in my name. Real ID in process. New routing number set. I called my boss at the deli and switched my direct deposit right away. Next, I logged into the phone plan, the one I'd opened when I was 19 because you're the only one with decent credit, Ben. I ported my number to a prepaid carrier. The other 3 lines, Mom, Dad, Ava, were showing past due by $89. Luke's line had been cut off last month, and he'd switched to a prepaid, so it wasn't on the account. Didn't matter who ran it up. On paper, it was mine. I backed out of that account, then canceled Netflix. I scheduled the electric service to transfer out of my name at the end of the current billing cycle. Picked up a small prepaid hotspot for class stuff. When Mom texted me a few hours later saying, "The TV stopped working. Fix it." I didn't answer. Dad left a voicemail that night. No greeting. Just, family comes first. Your tips are household money, and you know that I stared at the phone while it played, then set my lock screen to silence unknown numbers. I walked into Delgado's kitchen the next day and said, "I'm good to make every class now. No more rides, no more house stuff." He didn't smile or ask why, just nodded and handed me a binder with food safety drills, knife diagrams, and the weekly schedule. "Show up, do the drills, no excuses," he said. That was it. Harper came by the kitchen that night. She saw me trying to track my hours and food costs on a scrap of receipt paper and didn't say anything snide. Just pulled out her laptop and said, "I made a budget template you can copy. Rent, food, class fees. Start simple. Document everything, especially anything from the old accounts." Just in case I didn't argue. I just nodded and took the flash drive she handed over. It felt like someone tossing a life raft without asking if I could swim. That first week away, I slept through the night for the first time in years. No footsteps waking me up for one quick ride, no last-minute laundry piles, no late-night grocery runs because someone forgot cereal. Just silence. One night I even slept through my alarm, missed breakfast, but I didn't feel bad about it. Each morning there was still this 5-minute stretch right after I woke up where the guilt hit hard. Not because I missed them, but because I knew how they'd spin it. "You abandoned the family," or "You're ungrateful after all we did." I'd hear their voices in my head before I even got out of bed. But once I stood up, pulled on my work shirt, and saw the calendar with only my name on it, that weight slid off. My shoulders dropped. And the guilt? It passed. Noah didn't ask for updates. He kept to himself mostly, working nights at the medical supply warehouse. Every few evenings, he'd tap on the basement door and drop down with extra leftovers, or just to sit a few minutes before his shift. Never pressed, never judged. "You getting your footing?" he asked once. "Yeah," I said. Finally. Delgado kept it tight at the kitchen. No room for sloppiness. He corrected my cuts, drilled me on safe temps, taught me how to taste before I seasoned, not after. It wasn't school, it was sharper than that. Every second had weight. Respect the line, he'd say. You don't respect it, it won't respect you back. I took it to heart. One night, I texted Harper a screenshot of my updated budget. No emojis, no fluff, just a message. Bills balanced, no past dues. Groceries covered, still on track. She responded 5 minutes later. That's what we call a grown adult move. Proud of you, I sat on that twin mattress, eating a bowl of leftover rice and beans from the kitchen, and stared at that message longer than I needed to. Not because of the words, but because I finally believed them. I was on my 15-minute break behind the deli, sitting on the curb, trying to cram for my ServSafe exam with a highlighter and a lukewarm coffee, when I saw Mom's minivan roll into the lot. She pulled up way too fast, parked crooked, and got out like it was some emergency. Her eyes were already wet when she walked up. "Benny, just hear me out," she said, like she hadn't been ignoring my texts for 2 weeks. I stood up and didn't say anything, just waited. She rubbed her temple, then went straight into it. "The phone bill's a mess now. Your sister's line keeps dropping. I need you to put it back. Just the account, just for the credit score. It's your name, your score. It won't hurt you." "It's already hurting me," I said. "I'm not putting it back." She blinked, hard. "You're acting like this is all just nothing. Like this family didn't raise you. I'm not your bank," I said. "And I'm not going back." Her face twisted, but she didn't say anything else. Just hugged her purse to her chest, turned, and walked away. I went to clock back in, patted my jacket pocket, and my keys were gone. I checked the curb, my bag, the break table, even the floor in the back room. Nothing. I called her. She answered on the second ring. "Oh, I grabbed them by accident. They were just sitting there." "You made me late," I said. She laughed lightly. "Well, I didn't know they were important today." They were. I missed the test window. I had to rebook it for the following week. Delgado didn't say much, but I could see it on his face when I told him. "You better not make that a pattern," he said. "Second chances don't mean you get thirds." I passed it a week later, scored high. Kept the paper slip folded in my wallet like a badge. But it sat heavy. Later that month, I went to the library to print some class notes and figured I'd finally pull my credit report while I was there. I needed to know how deep the damage was. There it was, store card I didn't open, under my name, with a balance of $1,182. Opened 4 months ago, same home address I'd just left. I stared at the screen, fingers frozen on the mouse. It was in my name, my SSN, my problem. I printed it out and took the bus straight to the kitchen. Harper was already there, doing homework in the corner with her headphones halfway on. I dropped the printout in front of her and said, "That's not my debt." She read it, jaw clenched. "We can dispute this. Also, you need to send them a cease and desist. If they use your info again, it needs to be on record." We sat down at her firm's copier the next day and drafted the letter together. Clear, direct. Stop using my identity for accounts or credit. She helped me get it notarized and sent certified. I still remember her saying, "This isn't spite. It's protection." Delgado backed me too. When I told him what was going on, he pulled a wrinkled letterhead from his drawer and said, "Tell me what to write." "I'll sign it. I've seen you clock in, work clean, hit deadlines. If it goes to court, I'll say what I know." I filed a small claims case the same week, went downtown, waded through metal detectors, and handed over a folder with copies of my bank statements, ID, credit report, and a screenshot of the disputed card. The clerk stamped everything and said, "You'll get a hearing date within 6 weeks." That night, I got a text from Mom. "You're tearing this family apart over a piece of plastic. Hope you sleep well." 2 days later, Dad called from a blocked number. His voice was calm, too calm. "Just put the Netflix back. Your sister's stressed. All this overreaction for what?" I hung up. Delgado put me on steam table prep for the night crew. I stayed late, practicing Brunoise cuts on carrots and celery till my hands cramped. He walked past, glanced down at the cutting board and said, "Clean cuts." That's how you keep the line flowing. I asked him about steam table timing. How do I hold the greens without turning them to mush? No wasted motion, he said. Season, taste, adjust. Stop second guessing. You already know when it's right, I started trusting that. The nights were long, but they were mine. No side eyes, no guilt texts. Just prep, cook, clean, sleep. One night, Harper came by after her shift with a folder under her arm and a hot tea in the other hand. Got bored, she said. Mocked up a few logos. Something simple. If you ever want to put a name to what you're doing. I flipped through the pages. Doodles, fonts, a little drawing of a fork next to a skillet. It hit harder than it should have. I asked if she ever thought of opening her own thing. Not really, she said. My mom tore everything I liked apart before I could finish it. Got good at not starting. We didn't go deeper than that. Just talked sauces for a while. Safe ground, real ground. Couple nights later, Luke texted from a new number. Mom says you stole from us. I stared at the message a long time. Thought about the phone bill, the late electric, the debt in my name, the ride schedules, the drained credit. I replied, I didn't. You know me, that was all I wrote. I didn't add anything else. And I didn't wait for an answer. The sun hadn't even cracked the sky when I parked outside the warehouse space in the Strip District. My Cambros were stacked in the back seat, labeled and taped down tight. I carried them in one by one, shoulders burning from weight and nerves, and set up my station near the back table by the utility sink. Pulled chicken with tangy slaw, pierogi hash with hot honey, and roasted carrot salad with mustard vinaigrette. That was my lineup. Delgado handed me the keys to that corner and said, Don't overthink it. Just feed them. I taped a line diagram to the wall, labeled every tray, and double-checked holding temps like it was a state exam. Harper was already up front setting up the sign-in table. She looked at my labels, raised an eyebrow, and smirked. You labeled the tongs? I shrugged. I like knowing what goes where. She handed me a Sharpie. Then you missed the sauce ladle. Get it together, chef. The volunteers trickled in around 7. Neighbors from the hill, a few church folks, a couple of food bloggers with camera gear that looked more serious than they needed. I kept my head down and my station clean. No extra chatter. Just hot food, full plates, wipe down, repeat. Then a volunteer tapped my arm and leaned in close. Do we have a copy of the permit on site? City guy might swing by. Someone said it's missing from the binder. My stomach dropped. Delgado was off fixing a fryer issue, and the binder was nowhere in sight. I scanned every table trying to stay calm, but my pulse was jackhammering. That pop-up could get shut down in 5 minutes over a missing page. Harper clocked the look on my face from across the room. She jogged over, already unzipping her tote. Breathe. You're covered. She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Copies of my ServSafe, the pop-up notice, and the temporary health permit with today's date highlighted. I grabbed it with shaky hands and nodded. Got your back, she said. Then went back to her table like it was nothing. By mid-morning, the room was packed. Steam clung to the windows. Music bumped from somebody's Bluetooth speaker. The slaw was getting low, so I doubled the next batch and went heavier on the vinegar this time. Plates kept coming back clean, which is how I knew I wasn't screwing it up. Some guy from the local event board came around mid-shift and told us there'd be a mini cook-off added to the fundraiser. Comfort food category. Quick vote. No entry fee, just for fun. Delgado clapped once and shouted across the kitchen, You in, Bennett? I nodded. Already knew what I was submitting. Pierogi hash, caramelized onions, diced kielbasa, hot honey drizzle. Pittsburgh enough to feel familiar, but mine. At the end of service, they read off the winners over a staticky mic. My hash took first. They handed me a little envelope. Micro grant, $2,500, plus a shout-out in the East End neighbor blog. I stood there holding it like it might vanish if I blinked too long. Delgado clapped me on the shoulder. You earned that. Don't spend it on anyone's phone bill. I laughed, short and sharp, But yeah, I heard him loud and clear. The buzz was still in the air when I caught sight of someone standing too close to the coffee table. Dad, in his faded landscaping jacket, talking to one of the church volunteers like he owned the place. "He owes us," I heard him say. "We raised him. Duty doesn't end just 'cause you get a little attention." I was ready to walk over and end it, but Noah beat me to it. Didn't say a word, just stood next to me, arms folded, eyes locked on Dad until he got the message. Dad turned, mouth half open, then saw us both, and left without saying another thing. After cleanup, I sat on an overturned milk crate with my back aching and grease under my nails. A guy with a small food truck parked near the edge of the event came over and said, "You the one who did that hash? You ever want a guest on a Saturday? Hit me up. We'll split tips." I run ribs and rice. Could use variety. I took his number. 2 weeks later, I rolled in at 6 a.m., and we did rib tips and slaw in Lawrenceville. Sold out by 3. Folks came back asking when I'd be there again. The pop-up post blew up on Instagram. Someone snapped a pic of me next to the chalkboard menu, and another kid tagged a photo of a paper napkin where they'd drawn my name above a house and a tiny skillet. Bennett's Small Kitchen. I saved it and made it my phone wallpaper before I even left the truck. A few days after that, Delgado pulled me aside in the walk-in cooler. "I've got a buddy with a spot in Polish Hill, above his lunch place. 1 bedroom, nothing fancy. Cheap rent, but it's above a kitchen. If you're serious, I'll make the call." "I'm serious," I said. I didn't even need to think about it. Later that week, at another weekend event, I was serving trays when I saw a kid in a black hoodie, head down, standing in the line with a few dollars in hand. It was Luke. He didn't say anything at first, just looked around, took in the crowd. Then he said, "Slaw's hitting hard. You make this?" "Yeah," I said. He handed over crumpled bills and took his plate. "Tastes better than what we got at home," he added. "Just saying." He walked off before I could respond, but I saw him finish the whole thing. That night, driving Noah's old Taurus since my car was still in the shop, we rolled down the windows and let the air hit us. I had grease on my shirt, tips in my pocket, and a win I didn't owe to anyone but myself. Noah was laughing about some guy who tried to trade 3 pickles for a second plate. I was laughing too. Couldn't stop, actually. It felt good. It felt earned. I needed a certified birth certificate for my real ID and the final culinary enrollment form. The school had already let me register for classes, but they flagged it. No certified copy on file, just the scan I had from years back, folded and faded. I texted Mom, short and to the point. "Need my birth certificate. State copy. Real ID deadline." She replied a few hours later. "Must have filed it somewhere safe. I'll let you know when I find it." She didn't. A week passed, then another. Nothing. Then one afternoon she sent a message out of nowhere. "Your last box is in the laundry room. I'll be out from 3 to 4. Doors unlocked." No hi, no apology, no mention of the birth certificate. But I knew that hour window meant I wouldn't have to see her face, and that was good enough for me. I parked across the street, went in quiet, and didn't linger. The box was right where she said, duct-taped sloppily, my name written in faded Sharpie. I had my hand on the doorknob, ready to walk out, when I stopped and looked at the laundry shelf. That plastic folder with the label Insurance/Taxes was still there. I'd seen it 100 times, shoved between a box of dryer sheets and old file folders. I pulled it down. It felt heavier than I remembered. I opened it and saw the word decree in bold at the top of a page. Underneath it, Adoption Final Decree. I kept flipping. There was an amended birth certificate with my name, same first and last, but the issue date was from years after I was born. Parents, Renee Bennett and Todd Bennett. Next page. An immunization card from a pediatric clinic in Wheeling, West Virginia. Not Allegheny County, not Pittsburgh. Wheeling. I checked the SSN paperwork inside too. The issue date lined up with when I was about 5. I just stood there, holding it all, hands cold. There's a difference between having suspicions and seeing it printed on state forms. I remembered what Mrs. Whalen said once when I was a kid. You were so quiet when you first came to live with them. She'd clamped her mouth shut after that like she'd slipped. And Mom, during every argument when I pushed back or said no to something unfair, always fired the same line. We saved you. You owe us now. I knew exactly what she meant. I took photos of everything, one by one, clear, centered, time-stamped. Then I put it all back exactly how I found it and walked out with the box like nothing happened. I texted Harper on the bus ride back. She met me at the basement later that night. Didn't ask questions at the door. Just sat on the edge of the mattress, let me drop the box on the floor and waited. I showed her the photos. She scrolled through one by one, not reacting. Then she asked, "Want me to help you call the county clerk?" "Yeah," I said. "I want the certified copy. I want whatever the agency can tell me." She nodded once and opened her laptop. "We'll request non-identifying info." "You've got the right. Closed case or not." I stared at my hands while she typed. I didn't feel anything right then. No anger, no tears, just a kind of blank wait. We called the Allegheny County clerk the next morning. I asked if they could confirm a foster-to-adopt case for a kid with my name, born the year I was, adopted by Renee and Todd Bennett. The woman on the phone asked for some ID, then put us on hold. Harper muted the speaker and said, "Whatever happens, it's real now." Not just guesswork. The clerk came back 10 minutes later and said the file was sealed but active, finalized when I was 5, right there in Allegheny County. She confirmed the amended certificate and the names of my adoptive parents. That was all she could give, but it was more than enough. Back at Noah's basement, I sat on the mattress, my coffee going cold in my hands. It was quiet. The space heater hummed. The water pipe above my head knocked like it always did when someone used the bathroom upstairs. There's a difference between suspecting and knowing. Harper didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "That's crazy." She just sat next to me and said, "What do you need next?" I didn't have to think. "Certified copy. Enrollment done. Keep my head straight." She nodded. "Then we'll do it." I went to the kitchen that night and told Delgado everything. Straight up. No drama. Just the facts. He didn't blink. "This isn't who you are," he said. "It's just where you came from. This is the part where you pick what your life is, not what you were told." That night, I slept harder than I had in months, not because everything was fixed, but because the fog finally cleared. It didn't feel like walking in circles anymore. The map made sense now, and I knew where I didn't want to go back to. Dad called early Sunday. Way too early for someone who never called first. My phone buzzed just after 6. "Come home for breakfast," he said. "Just you and me." Talk a little, I said I'd meet him, but not at the house. He offered a diner by the river, the one near the train yard that hadn't changed in 30 years. Vinyl booths, metal napkin holders, and burnt coffee that tasted like cardboard. I got there first and grabbed a booth in the back. He came in wearing the same navy hoodie he always wore for landscaping jobs, with dirt still crusted on the sleeves. He sat down across from me and didn't look at the menu. The waitress poured coffee and walked off without asking. He took one sip, then leaned back. He didn't ask how I was, didn't mention the last 5 texts I hadn't answered. Instead, he sighed and said, "The house is falling apart." I waited. He kept going. "Your mom's behind on the electric. The phone plan's disconnected. Netflix is gone. The fridge went out and we had to throw everything. Luke's missing school trying to take Ava to practice. They're overwhelmed." I stayed quiet. Then he added it. "We saved you, you know. Don't forget who raised you." "I didn't forget," I said. "I also know now. About the adoption, the amended certificate, all of it." He blinked once, like that caught him off guard, but only for a second. "Yeah," he said, quieter. "We did foster to adopt. Got a little help for a while. That's how it worked. Then the twins came along and things got tighter." He looked at me like I was supposed to thank him. Like that half-confession cleared something. "We did what we could," he added, like I'd asked for an apology. I hadn't. I set my coffee down and said, "You're asking me to come back and carry it again." He didn't deny it, just leaned forward and said, "If you moved home, we'd help with your schooling. Rent-free, it'd free you up. You know we'd support you." "Support me with my own paycheck?" I asked. "Same setup, my money in your bills, my name on your accounts." He shook his head like I was being dramatic. "It'd be a trade. Everybody wins." I pulled out 2 folded sheets from my coat pocket and slid them across the table. One was the cease and desist Harper helped me write. The other was the small claims paperwork with the court date circled in red. "Stop using my name," I said. "Stop opening things under my info. Pay your own accounts." He looked down at the papers like they were in a foreign language. Then he looked up and gave the same line he always used when he lost control of the narrative. "You always were ungrateful." I didn't bite. I just stared at him, still and quiet, until he stopped talking. The waitress came back and asked if we wanted to order. I told her I'd just take the check. Dad didn't say a word after that. 6 weeks later, right on the timeline the court clerk gave me, the hearing came up. I showed up with a binder, neatly tabbed, credit report, statement copies, dates, screenshots. Harper sat outside the courtroom while I went in alone. Mom was there. She didn't say anything. She cried quietly in the hallway before we went in, but I didn't stop. I sat down, told the judge what happened, showed the documents, and kept my voice steady. No drama, just facts. The judge sided with me, ordered a refund, said the store card was fraudulently opened, and the Bennetts were not authorized users. I walked out, past Mom in the hallway. She reached out once like she might touch my arm, then pulled back and turned her face toward the window. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The next day, Delgado handed me a set of keys wrapped in a takeout menu. Small, second-floor place over a lunch spot in Polish Hill. Tiny stove, walls the color of old plaster, kitchen vent that rattled when the weather changed. It smelled like fryer oil and burnt toast. It was perfect. "This place is yours if you want it," Delgado said. "You earned it. I told my guy you'd keep it clean and pay on time. Don't make me a liar, I didn't. First night I unpacked my knife roll, hung up a magnetic strip on the wall, and scrubbed the tiny prep counter with a sponge until it stopped smelling like last week's soup. Harper started coming by more. At first, just to help organize the next fundraiser. Inventory lists, permit forms, recipes with backup weights, and batch counts. She was calm, focused, didn't rush anything. She kept my head straight, even when I started spinning out about portions, or head counts, or city inspectors. One night, she stayed late going over packaging options for to-go plates. We didn't talk much, just sat on the floor with menus and paper samples spread across the rug. When she left, she said, "You know you're doing it, right?" "You're actually building something," I didn't answer out loud. But after she left, I looked around that room, the clean dishes, the labeled storage bins, the quiet, and I finally believed it. The house back in Greenfield was still falling apart. But for the first time, I wasn't under the rubble with it. The twins' school held a spring awards night in the gym. Folding chairs, cheap streamers, those giant laminated certificates the school loved handing out like candy. I showed up on time but stayed in the back row, behind the last row of parents, and under a half-dead ceiling fan. I clapped when Ava got a leadership award for cheer, and again when Luke got recognized for most improved in JV hoops. I planned to leave as soon as they were done. No mingling, no forced smiles. But a staffer flagged me near the water fountain before I could slip out. Middle-aged guy in a polo with the school's name embroidered on the chest. "Your parents said you might say a few words tonight," he said, just as the older brother. "Talk about how you're supporting them, offering help with college." It'd mean a lot, I blinked at him. "No speech from me," I said. "Not tonight." I walked straight past him and back to my seat, the program wrapped with applause and a kid stumbling through the national anthem on keyboard. I stood up to leave, but before I could get 2 steps, Mom appeared like she'd been waiting for the cue. Say something nice, she hissed, guiding me toward a small mic set up on a folding table next to the sheet cake and hand sanitizer. She gripped my elbow tight and forced a smile for the people watching. I looked at the mic, then at her, then at the kids behind her trying to keep from looking our way. I leaned in and said, loud enough to carry, "I'm proud of you, Ava and Luke. You're working hard and it shows. I'm building my own life now. But if either of you want shifts at my prep kitchen, I pay fair and on time. That's what I can offer." Mom's smile twitched. She stepped forward, laughed nervously, and added, "He's going to help with tuition too, of course." I looked at the mic again. "I'm not committing to that," I said, flat and direct. Then I stepped back and walked away. Silence hit harder than I expected. A couple parents suddenly found their phones really interesting. One mom looked down at her kid's snack cup like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. Dad stood stiff near the drink table, his jaw locked so tight you could hear it. The twins stared at their plates like they wanted the ground to eat them whole. I waited by the side exit, leaning against the wall. Ava came over first, arms crossed, voice low. "Mom shouldn't have done that," she said. "I didn't know she was going to pull that." "I believe you," I said. She hesitated, then added, "I might take one of those Saturday shifts. I've been trying to save for books anyway." "Good," I said. "Let me know what weekend." Luke stood behind her, hands in his hoodie pocket, not saying anything. He didn't look mad, just blank, like he'd hit shutdown mode. "You good?" I asked. He nodded once. No words. They walked out together. I stayed behind just long enough to avoid the parking lot circus. That weekend, I worked the flat top for the Food Truck Guys event in Lawrenceville. The weather was trash. Rain and smoke mixed in the air like wet charcoal, but we still sold out. I didn't think about the awards night. Not once during the rush. Not when I flipped rib tips or boxed slaw or counted tips with frozen fingers. But when I got home and peeled off my soaked hoodie, I collapsed on the futon and slept like I'd been hit with a hammer. Monday morning, my inbox lit up. The neighborhood paper had run a small story, just a few paragraphs. Fundraiser results, cook-off win, micro grant. There was one line at the end. Bennett's Small Kitchen, run by a Hill District volunteer, served a crowd-favorite pierogi hash and slaw. No full name, no photo, just enough. I stood in my tiny kitchen, fridge humming like a distant truck, and reached up to the magnet board. Pulled out a doodle logo one of the kids had handed me at the last pop-up, fork next to a crooked little house, and stuck it dead center. That was mine. Didn't matter if it looked like a middle school art project. I looked at that magnet the same way I used to stare at my first pay stub back in high school, when I bagged groceries at Foodland and thought $24 was a fortune. It wasn't about the number, it was proof. After the awards night, I went home and made a list. Not a wish list, not a dream board, a cleanup list. First thing, I closed every single utility account still in my name. Phone, electric, internet, done. I sent final notices certified, tracked every envelope, and made sure the end dates lined up. If anything else showed up in my mailbox with my name on it and their address, I wrote "Return to Sender" in thick black Sharpie and dropped it back in the blue box on the corner. That refund from the small claims case finally hit my credit union. $1,182 minus court fees. I moved half into savings and put the other half into my equipment fund. No detours, no family bailouts. That money had a job now. Harper helped me knock out the last pieces of the fraud report. We filed the official dispute, froze my credit to block new hard pulls, and signed up for alerts in case anyone tried something again. While we filled out forms at the kitchen table, she said, "Boring wins are the best wins." I didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. A few days later, my tax refund dropped into the same account. Clean deposit, first one in years with no surprise holds or mystery charges. I took the bus to the south side and bought 2 second-hand stainless prep tables from a closed cafe. Hauled them back in a borrowed van with legs wrapped in packing tape. I found a used commercial blender on Craigslist, Called the guy twice to make sure it worked, then paid cash and carried it up the narrow stairwell to my apartment above the lunch spot. Nearly threw out my back, but it made it to the counter in one piece. I registered a DBA, Bennett's Small Kitchen, and filed for a basic event permit. Delgado signed on the paperwork as my mentor, no hesitation. His signature on that form meant more than a whole year of, "We're proud of you," from anyone else. That little one-bedroom over the Polish Hill lunch spot stopped feeling like a crash pad and started feeling like a real space. I shifted the futon against the far wall and set up the prep tables under the window. When the street got quiet at night, I could hear the lunch spot's hood vent humming below like white noise. It was better than silence. It meant work was getting done. Then one Saturday, Ava texted and asked if I still needed weekend help. I gave her prep tasks: wash produce, label containers, stack trays in order. Nothing fancy, but I didn't babysit her either. She knocked it out without attitude and left with a clean white envelope of cash. No promises, no guilt trip. Luke came the next week. Just showed up at the door in a hoodie, didn't even text first. I handed him a dish towel and pointed at the stack by the sink. He didn't complain, didn't ask questions, just got to work. We didn't talk much, but he didn't look away when we passed each other. That was enough for now. It was a rainy Thursday when Harper showed up with a suitcase and a few taped-up boxes from her mom's place. She didn't make a speech or ask for permission. Just walked in, set her stuff down by the futon and said, "Dinner's on me if you're good with pasta and canned sauce." We boiled water, split the sauce, and ate sitting on prep stools in the kitchen with our plates balanced on upside-down mixing bowls. After, I cleared out a drawer in the dresser and didn't say a word about it. She noticed. That was all it took. The next day, we put up a magnet board. Orders on one side, bills on the other. I stood there looking at it for a full minute. Everything had a place. Nothing was on fire. Delgado stopped by that weekend to drop off a box of extra quart containers and poked his head around. "You've got a shot," he said, checking out the setup. "Keep it about the food and the books. Don't get lost in anything else." "I won't," I said. Because finally, for the first time, I actually believed that was possible. The envelope came certified. One from the county clerk with my certified birth certificate. Another from family court with the finalized adoption decree. I didn't frame them, didn't light a candle or sit in silence. I slid them into a fireproof envelope, sealed it, and tucked it under the sink, next to receipts, my vendor permit, and the backup keys for the blender. That was where the important stuff lived now, right where I could reach it, but out of the way. 2 days later, my phone rang again. New number. I let it go to voicemail. Same number rang again the next morning, then again that evening. I answered on the fourth call. "You're cold," Mom said. No greeting, no question, just that. "I'll meet you in public," I told her. "Neutral ground or not at all." She didn't argue. Just texted a time and location. Coffee shop near the East Busway. Neutral enough. They were already there when I walked in, sat across from each other at a tiny table, hands folded like it was a contract negotiation. Dad looked tired, but didn't say it. Mom had her coat draped over the back of the chair like she planned to stay. I sat across from them, didn't order anything. Dad leaned forward first. "Come home." "No," I said. No hesitation. He looked at Mom, then back at me. "The twins need help." "The house." "I know what the house needs," I said, "but I'm not the answer to it." I let it hang there, then added, "I'm grateful you took me in." I am. I don't forget that. But I won't fund your house or babysit your life. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're how this doesn't keep burning. Mom crossed her arms. "We thought you'd understand." Her eyes were dry, voice flat. "We saved you," she added. I stood up. "I'm grateful you took me in," I said again, this time louder. "But gratitude isn't servitude." Neither of them followed me out. A week later, I got a text from Luke. Short, just a sentence. "We're actually doing chores now." I get why you left. I'm sorry I stared at it a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I wrote back, proud of you. Shifts open this weekend. Harper came home that night with a cheap little plant in a plastic pot, one of those grocery store succulents that barely needs water. She set it by the window between the spice rack and the backup roll of paper towels. We ate leftover slaw and watched a game on the old TV we'd picked out together off Facebook Marketplace. It still had someone's name written on the remote in Sharpie, but it worked fine. The magnet logo, a fork next to a crooked house, finally peeled off from the fridge. I didn't throw it away. I traced the outline onto a blank sticker sheet and cut it clean, then pressed it onto the inside of the door, just above the light switch. No spotlight. Just mine. That night, I loaded the Cambros into the trunk for a church hall job. 3 trays of roasted vegetables, 2 racks of pulled chicken, sauces sealed and labeled. I locked the door, shut off the light, and stood in the quiet. No half-whispered demands through the vents, no stacked dishes waiting, no schedule written for someone else's life. The calendar hanging on the wall listed nothing but my orders, my invoices, and Harper's class schedule. That was the house now. It wasn't fancy, just real. What would you have done in my place? Go back out of family duty or draw the line and build your own life? Drop a comment, even just good story, or your take. If you'd like to support the channel, tap super thanks. It's optional, but really helps. And please like and subscribe. Huge for us, easy for you.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.